Hey man, how's it going?
Howdy doody, not too bad. Pretty much got all my stuff packed, and I'm freaking out because I gotta do everything to get out of here and gotta clean up.
Wonderful. Yep. And welcome back, Tristan. How's it going, my friend?
It's going good. It's going good. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. This is what your third episode you've done with us now.
Yeah. I was trying to figure that out, but
I had to
Yeah.
beg Anthony.
Yeah,
He
because
wouldn't, he wouldn't want you.
we had you here for the first waterfall episode, right? With the poplars, and
Yeah.
then you joined us for a big one for the what is that one called? The what
Anthology?
if the anthology of interest, right? With Andrew. So that was nice. And then here you are again for
yeah.
another kind of eco-friendly one. I wonder if there's a bit of a pattern here, Try.
Every time there's
yeah.
a waterfall, we just have Tristan on because
Yeah,
he's
that's
a
right.
waterfall.
And maybe
I
we'll
like-
have him for the next one.
I like the frequency. It's like I can tell people I am a podcaster, but I have a very low time commitment.
You're a special guest star, which is very nice to say, right? You're
Yeah.
like Frank Welker.
Exactly. Yeah. An occasional guest star on a podcast.
Exactly. No, welcome back everyone to Bite My Shiny Metal Cast episode episode 9 of season 3 as it was on television here. Birdbot of Ice-Catraz. Yeah, so we have here, it's a fun one actually. I think there's a lot of fun in here, so let's get right into it. Opening caption, now with chuckling. So this is obviously a play on like the medicine of some sort, right? Like something Lin. So chuckling, makes you laugh. I love it.
Benadryl.
I couldn't get that. I
Oh,
googled
is
it
it?
and I couldn't figure out what was that.
Yeah, I didn't.
It's not real, obviously.
Water off a duck's back for me. I was just like, it's something.
It's just it's chuckle and Lin as in like chuckling, right? Or turn it into a medicine.
Oh,
A lot of them
right.
end with LIN. Oh, you guys didn't get that right off the bat.
No.
Okay, yeah.
Well-
chuckle.
well-
There you go. But yeah, we open up here on Fry making a what is this called? Like a styropack cookie or some sort. But it's basically
Oreos.
it's a knockoff of an Oreo.
It's assemble yourself Oreo cookie.
Yeah, this is okay. So it's like he opens a bag, he gets like the two sides of the cookies come in two separate packages and the cream, and he puts them into a little machine, and then he squishes them together, takes out the cookie, it's that one Oreo, and he opens it, he licks it because that was the thing to do, and then he tosses the cookies, the cookie crackers away.
Well, wasteful. Doesn't that?
So wasteful.
If you had that machine, wouldn't that be just like a prized possession if you had an Oreo squisher?
I guess it would be. But it's like it's literally just designed for just that one thing.
Yeah, and it's labeled front side, back side, center.
Right, for those idiots who don't know, in case you mix up your cookie sides, right? Yeah,
I would understand that from like a product manufacturing point. It's just like you need to cover your butt for everything. It's like
Yeah.
it was very obviously we had this all labeled so that way you can't get in trouble for anything.
sure.
Didn't you
Coffee's
occasionally
too
get-
hot. Yeah.
Don't you occasionally get the occasional Oreo that the sides are flipped?
Oh,
In the-
sure you do. Yeah, I'm sure there's like
you
some
mean
kind of
the-
manufacturing
The
thing. Yeah.
textures on top is
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
on the inside rather than the outside.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I've gotten one like that.
Yeah, we
Yep.
call those the special ones. The texture's slightly different because you don't feel those bumps on the top of your on your tongue or the roof of your mouth.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's a
It's
special
flat, and you're
type
just
of
like
cookie.
something's off about this. I'm still tasting Oreo, but the texture's slightly different.
So good. But yes, as we just mentioned about it being wasteful, Leela actually berates him for wasting so much, right? And on top of that, as they're in the Planet Express headquarters, by the way, and we have Bender sitting next to Fry while he's making these cookies. Bender sprays his antenna with like this aerosol thing, just to that slick back like hairspray type of thing. To which Leela also calls on him, being like, "Oh, you're clearly like harming the environment." And Bender makes a fun little comment here. We can't use this example, but in the future, he says, "Oh, it's not like the only planet we've got." As in, like, we can ruin the planet. It's okay. We have more. We can't do that yet. So it's kind of a funny little joke. 'Cause
Have they
she can't say no.
in the the canon of Futurama? Have they ever been to Venus or Mercury? Yeah. They went to
Mercury, yes, but there's nobody there except for a gas station.
except for a gas station, and obviously Mars has been
Mars has
somewhat
Mars University
colonized
and the
because
Wongs,
it has a university.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they also have the native Martians. And Venus, you know what? That's a good question. I think Venus they've never really touched on, as
I know
far as I can
Neptune-
remember in the
Neptune.
show.
Venus
has
is
one.
has a toxic atmosphere. So
Yeah.
if they did, it would be a
Futurama.
play on. But they're usually accurate
Oh.
insofar as like they would be wearing something to compensate for that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they have also gone to the sun. So
Yeah, it's
like,
for hydrogen.
they have a
yes.
helium mine on the sun, so I'm sure they could somehow get
Yeah,
to
there's
Venus.
Neptunians as well. Elzar's
Yep.
a Neptunian. Now, where was it that in the first movie when they all got scammed out and they had to go live somewhere else? What planet was it that they all lived on that had the Yetis?
Oh,
don't
wasn't that like
remember.
one of the moons of somewhere?
Yeah, and where was the no? And again, in the Comedy Central run, they had to go to like a planet that was like the garbage thing. It was really funny, terrible jokes, but they would go put all their waste there. I swear that was
right.
Venus,
Oh,
but I could
no.
be wrong on that.
Yeah, no, I think that may have been a made up planet for that one. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
And then like they have like the dog, and the dog's like near death because he's been. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember this one, and yeah, it's a horrible place. I think that's a made up planet. We'd have to double check that one, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
Right.
But yeah, every time they go to these planets, there's a lot of colonized planets because obviously they also have Dupe, right? The Democratic Order of Planets. Like they can go to a lot of different places.
I love that name.
So yeah, that's the whole thing there. So in any case, we move on here to the professor, and he comes in to send them on a his words, a controversial mission. And everyone's like, what or Fry says like controversial, and he's like, oh my no.
Oh, I love the professor when he
at all.
does this. I love that stuff. I love the jokes when the professor does that.
It turns out that the Planet Express crew, I guess, or the company, has been hired to tow a tanker truck or tanker ship of 6,000 hulls of dark matter oil.
6,000 hulls.
That's right, 6,000 hulls. So in any case, they have the 6,000 hulls, and they have to tow it to wherever they need to go. And obviously, the dark matter of the Futurama universe is for spaceships.
Yeah.
So they're tasked to do this, and we also get a glimpse of this. So, and Tristan was actually in the episode for when we talked about this. What is it?
Thinglonger.
The Thinglonger, yeah, that came back, and we actually see. So the professor actually invented the Thinglonger. It's now actually real. He's actually made it since that episode. So does that mean everything that's happened with the What If machine also happened then? What do we do?
Well, the thing is, in that particular episode, we were watching What If inside the What If. So it's an inception layer. So those ones don't happen because that's if he invented the long finger beforehand.
The Thinglonger,
yeah. My headcanon is that he was just so inspired by the What If timeline where he did invent it that he was like, I gotta go back and I gotta reinvent it.
Gotta do this.
And that is one continuity thing this episode has. I guess I was going to point out that Bender using the aerosol antenna spray kind of hits the ongoing theme of the robots are really inefficient and environmentally unfriendly. In particular, there's an episode that we just watched that's a few episodes later than this.
Sure.
That's
when they go to the island one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All the robots, because I mean this is Mom's doing, right? Like Mom's manufacturing with her robots. So yeah, she's made them with the antennas so they can like obey her or whatever in the future. If whatever she wants.
Us bastards.
They run on ethanol or methanol, like alcohol, basically all sorts of alcohol, so they pollute all the
always
time.
Burp?
Yeah.
Yep. They have like their exhaust ports like gives off all this stuff, and then and they can spray aerosol on themselves and whatever, right? And they also, according to like an episode that Mitchell and I talked about a few days back or a few weeks back, has when Bender goes and tries to bend a bunch of things because he needs to get bending out of his system, he's also shown to be like whenever he's bending like something really hard, he tends to fall apart. So their manufacturing is
they're not made very well.
Yeah.
Well,
because of Tijuana.
He was made in a factory in Mexico. Yeah.
So maybe that's the play on that. But yes, all these robots all have some kind of issue with the environment, right? But not only are they brought in to do this, and not only do we just see the Thinglonger, but the professor also mentions that there seems to be protesters that are trying to do this because he's telling them about a little route that they can take to try and avoid. I think there's like space toll booths or something, trying to get all the way past, and it's all the way past Pluto. So,
which they do visit. Pluto is an inhabited thing to go back onto the planets in the system.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, at least
Leela has a great line about this too.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about that because obviously it's a big portion of the episode. So Leela Leela doesn't like this at all, and she deserts them. She's like, okay, I'm not going to join your crew for this. I refuse. Professor's pissed off at her, so he demands her to give him her jacket, which obviously is her jacket, but he takes it anyway, and then he makes at first
Fry.
you think it's going to be Fry, but it's actually going to be Bender. So Bender becomes the new captain of the Planet Express crew, and I guess Fry becomes his second in command, and then they have Zoidberg fill out the new trio as Leela disappears, and she goes and joins the protesters to stop her company essentially from bringing the space tanker of oil. I kind of like this as a setup for an episode because it really fits a lot of these characters, especially like how Bender is as the captain of the ship and how Fry resents him for doing so. He's even upset that he believed like Leela was trying to teach him how to be the captain.
I even have a picture of me that I drew with me in her lap. That's
right. Which Zoidberg apparently really likes these little comics that Fry draws. So
that's in the Comedy Central run though.
Right. And Bender just, he takes on this what would you call it, like a nautical theme, I guess, right? So he gets like a captain's hat that's like a pirate captain
Napoleon
hat, or Napoleon.
Yeah, Napoleonic kind of dictator.
And he uses Leela's coat basically the whole show, and that's great. I love it. Yeah,
it's a very minor theme of Bender in this episode taking on the roles of famous historical leaders. So
sure, like Commander as the captain is, right?
Yeah.
And then later, sure.
I'll point out another one later, but let's say he's imitating Napoleon at this point.
Well, I think it's also Napoleon later too, right? With what you're alluding to, right? On Pluto. That's also Napoleon.
Well, he quotes Churchill.
Right.
Churchill
as a penguin, yeah.
When he says we'll fight them in the
glaciers,
on the glaciers, and that's a Churchill speech. But
Okay,
he also referred to himself as a dictator.
Yeah, it's me, your lovable dictator.
For all of Churchill's positives and negatives, he wasn't a dictator.
No, not at all.
Couldn't be said.
No, that was definitely more a Napoleon thing, I would say, right? Even though, I mean,
French
Emperor,
people,
whatever.
Right?
So it's occurring to me right now that one episode arc is that this is, Bender gets his first taste at leadership. He fails real hard at it with Fry, but then he does pretty good at it with the Penguins. That just occurred to me right now.
That's fair. Well, and we'll get into that in a little bit because this is also something to do personally with Bender and his relationship with Fry, which Mitchell and I have talked about in the past as well. So we have Leela joining the protesters, okay, and she's on there. I guess they have like a ship that's hovering around because they're going to stop the tanker from being taken. They're going to try to. And we are introduced to Free Waterfall Sr., who is the father of the hippie character from The Problem with Poplars. And
Tristan was first on.
Yeah, Tristan had joined us on the first time. So this character, I mean, to tell you the truth, I love this character. I think he's hilarious.
Oh, he's hilarious, yeah.
But he is. So if his son was like all about the hippie kind of crap, we'll say, like the hippie stuff about like, oh, don't eat meat and this will hurt the environment with this. This guy is like 10 steps ahead of that. And he's like in the nutcase side of like how environmentalists
like,
should be.
hold your applause. When you clap your hands, you kill useless spores. So just give a silent thumbs
up. Right.
And then I love the hold your thumbs, please.
Please hold your thumbs to the end, right?
Yeah.
Yes, very much. He's in his own words, he's like an environmental kook, right? In this kind of situation. So we have Fry and the crew, and they are latching onto the tanker, right? And I do like this little joke here about so Bender gives Fry a nickname. He's like, I like all my first mates to have a nickname or something. So he calls him Wiggles, and he calls him Wiggles throughout the rest of the episode, basically. And Fry's like hates it. He's like, you're patronizing me. You don't treat me with respect. Like you shouldn't be captain. All this stuff, and he's not getting along with him. He also makes mention of something like the captain's handbook, and I do like this. Like he throws this book at him or whatever, and Bender like brisks through it, but he actually reads it because he's a robot. So he calls Fry out, and he actually makes it true. He's like, "Yep." And what's Petey Parrot's first rule of command?
Respect the rule of command.
Yeah, or what was it? It was
rule
respect the chain O command or something.
Chain O command,
right? Chain O command. He's like, that's
right. Pirate talk for
exactly.
Arr, chain O command.
Yeah. So They latch onto this, and Waterfall's brilliant idea is to make a non-violent, non-threatening peace circle in space around the Planet Express crew and the tanker, so that they quote unquote can't leave, because ships obviously can't go in multiple directions in space, in which case they can, and they do. So the Planet Express crew latches it up, pulls it up, and they zoom in a different direction away from the circle. And they failed at this point. In order to catch them, though, they end up going to Pluto, and this is where the majority of this episode takes place. So Pluto has become what would you guys call this? Like a retreat? I guess it's a retreat. I think it's called like a penguin retreat.
Reserve.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a reserve for penguins. So sometime in the Futurama universe, they have decided to remove penguins from Earth and move them to the even colder and more desolate area of Pluto, because it's all ice, right? And they seem to be doing very well. Like, the penguins are thriving. They have a very good home here. Free Waterfall shows Leela, like, we like to mimic the mothers or whatever, and the guy with the little sock puppet.
Puppet, yeah.
And the penguin children or the penguin babies start like biting at him. I thought that was pretty funny. And she's like, "Oh, it's so cute," and he's like screaming.
One of the little baby penguins takes the guy's watch too.
Oh, that's right. See, they were supposed to be Bender's penguins all along.
I point out that
go for it.
I love this concept, using Pluto as a penguin reserve. A penguin reserve. I don't quite know why, because it wouldn't actually work. Pluto would actually be way too cold even for penguins.
Yeah,
I figured that as well. Yeah,
the gravity would be too low. They'd be kind of hopping 10, 15 feet in the air.
Yes,
and also there's killer whales too. There,
I just love the idea.
Right, yeah, it's just they have all these Arctic creatures and Antarctic creatures that are living there. In my head canon, I'd like to think that they've terrorized, or not terrorized, terraformed. Thank you, terraformed the planet somewhat.
Yes, they're breathing too. So
good point. Breathing for sure. We can say like, okay, terraformed. Okay, but then it's so far away from the sun. That's so
20 degrees below absolute zero.
Bro, yes. Which they do kind of mention, don't they? So I guess that maybe these penguins are also adapted. They've adapted to the cold in this regard. But yes, as Mitchell likes to bring up a lot of the time, suspension of disbelief.
And I'm happy to do that. And when I suspend my disbelief, I just love this concept. It just tickles me.
Yep.
I don't know why.
No, it's because penguins should be on Pluto. Yeah. They're in their natural habitat, just too cold.
There's an alliteration there.
Pluto's. Penguins.
Pluto's penguins. Yeah.
But there's also other animals there. Like, was there a polar bear, or did I imagine that?
No, that's in another episode. I know what you're talking about. That's
right. Mentioned puffins.
It's just the whale.
And we see fish.
Yeah.
Because they're hunting
the puffins. Or they make mention of puffins.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Don't stay away from those puffin brothers.
Twins. So there's like a whole bunch of like penguin-like birds that live there, and the whale. And then and fish, obviously, because Bender goes fishing with them later, right? So yeah, that's true. But yeah, we have backing onto the ship. So Fry and Bender, obviously, like Fry's getting annoyed. Bender doesn't care that he's annoyed, or is just aloof to it. But he invites him to have dinner with him at the captain's table, and I guess it's just like a ping pong table in their areas. Yeah. And then Bender's just being a blowhard. He's just like pretending to be great and doing all this stuff, as he does. This is clear, classic Bender. And as soon as Fry calls him out on it, Bender finally gets mad at him, and they have this little, we'll call it like a dispute, an argument, and Fry storms off, leaving Bender, and Zoidberg's there too, eating their scraps. And we have Bender clearly distraught that Fry doesn't want to be with him, or doesn't want to be his first mate. And so Bender stops drinking. And as we've just mentioned, robots in the Futurama universe need to drink alcohol in order to function. It powers their battery. So Bender ends up driving sober, or flying sober in terms of a robot thing. And he pilots the ship near Pluto, but he strikes an iceberg, causing breaches in the hulls, all 6,000 hulls.
When will they learn, Anthony? When will they learn?
They should have made it with 6,001 hulls. I know. And so all this oil dumps all over them, all over the reserve, all the penguins, all the people, everywhere. And it's just a horrific sight. Yeah. So we get all this kind of stuff. So with that, what do you guys think of this kind of situation? I think this is like a real world situation like this would get like full on world coverage, would it not? Like this has been around for a while.
And this was based on not the BP oil spill that was like 2005, but there was one, I looked it up. It was a big oil spill off Alaska somewhere in 1989.
Okay.
And that was the inspiration for that theme in this episode because that was probably the most recent one that was top of mind.
Sure. That would make sense, right? And that was a large spill, right? That was like a huge thing. They had to spend a lot of time cleaning it up and making sure everything was okay, right? Yeah. Which is kind of what they do here. So
it's all good. All you need is just Dawn soap. You're good.
Right.
Not a sponsor.
So the news catches this. I should say the Earth news catches this, and we get another cameo here of Linda and Morbo, and this is kind of mean. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, what's going on here, Mitchell? What is it?
So they're showing the pictures, or sorry, not the video of all the penguins being covered in the oil and stuff.
Right.
And so there's a little caption at the screen that says "Sound effects added to lessen tragedy," and it's like those wacky cartoons, like of people stumbling and falling.
Yeah. Woo. And they actually do, and they do it to Leela as well when she's like doing an interview, and then she slips.
And the way she describes it as a tragic but far away.
Right. Linda, right? Yes, a tragic but far away accident, right? Yeah, that's in the mindset of a lot of people. Like, oh, that will never happen here. We can feel bad, but honestly, our lives don't really change.
Trees don't just fall on people's cars. Well, guess what?
Well, that was far away for us, Mitch.
It's tragic, but it was far away.
But it was far away. Exactly.
Yeah, about 1,000 kilometers away. Yep.
So we have Bender kind of watching the news from what looks like a jail cell, and he's there with his lawyer. And we've seen this lawyer before. This is the rooster lawyer or whatever, like the one that's like
Foghorn Leghorn
or whatever, played by Maurice LaMarche. Yeah. So this one is like, all right, well, don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. I've got you down for a plea bargain or whatever, because they announced in the news obviously that Bender was driving way lower on alcohol level than he should have been, being a robot. So he's like sentenced to doing community service for only 5 hours despite destroying a giant tanker. But he has to spend those 5 hours on Pluto cleaning penguins. And it turns out it's also like his lawyer would have done better, but his lawyer himself is actually doing time. So he's actually in the jail cell. I thought that was kind of a fun little reveal when I first watched the episode.
When was the last time I saw this guy? Was it Brannigan?
Begin again? Sounds familiar. Yeah.
I swear there's another one though, because that's when they had said like, yeah, this guy's this one's insane. So
that's next. That's later, because isn't that that's Insane in the Mainframe, right? That's when we're coming back. And he's like, oh, how do I know they're actually crazy? And he says, oh, because they done hired me as their lawyer, their representative. And he's like, oh, done.
Do you know what the inspiration for the title of this episode?
Yeah, Birdbot of Ice-Catraz is like for Alcatraz, right? Ice-Catraz, Alcatraz.
Yeah, it's the Birdman of Alcatraz. Yeah.
Okay. Which is a reference to is it a book?
It was a real life story. It was a violent psychopath fellow from the early 20th century was sent to Alcatraz for I don't know the exact, but some sort of violent crimes.
Okay.
And he studied the birds that landed on the
water.
On the ledges of his cell or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And he ended up publishing some scientific literature about it, like actually contributing quite significantly to the scientific knowledge of birds at the time. And they said he became a better person for it. He still committed, violent acts to put him there, but
but in the end he did some good.
It just reminded me because this was a scene with a bird in prison.
Yeah, well, I think this. Oh, I see. So he's actually the Birdman in a prison, right? Yeah, that's true. That's funny. Actually, so this episode, kind of the title has a lot of. Thank you for bringing this up. That has a lot of really good levels to it, because then obviously the Birdbot is referencing Bender, and not in Alcatraz, but he's definitely like doing some kind of like prison kind of thing. So he's like in an Ice-Catraz kind of situation. And then when he becomes the penguin, right, he's kind of like one of them. So he becomes a Birdbot, right? Yeah, there's a lot of levels to this. That's fair enough. Thank you, Tristan.
They were pretty brilliant.
Yep.
writers and creators.
Yeah,
tell you, man, these early
writers actually
seasons-
tried back in the day.
Yep, these early seasons, man, they're very well made. So back at the penguin retreat or reserve, sorry, everyone is cleaning the penguins, including like Leela and everyone, and we get a return of Earl or URL and Smitty. That's his name, right? Was Smitty the other cop? Yeah. And they're observing Bender. They're watching Bender to make sure he doesn't like flee or something, right? Just for the 5 hours. As Leela washes the penguins and she's doing all this kind of stuff, and she comes over to him to tell him like, okay, make sure to do it properly and don't like half-ass it like he always does, kind of thing. And so during a certain time, she leaves them, and the police officers are. I don't know what this is supposed to be referenced to. We never really see this again. I mean, they're friends, but they're very, very close in this episode. I don't necessarily know why. I think this is just a kind of a gimmick just to get Bender to be able to get away. But they end up hugging each other because they have a really sensitive moment about whether or not it matters that penguins are black or white with like the type of feathers. So Bender uses this particular moment to like escape. He walks away, he takes a tuxedo out of his chest and he puts it on, and he shrinks down with his legs and he waddles into the penguins. And it's nonsensical. It's so funny, but it's just like this robot, clearly a robot in a tuxedo, blending in with a bunch of penguins, and the robot cop and Smitty do not know anything. They can't see him or anything. Like, damn, they got away. So
I guess this is why Chief says no hugging.
Exactly. So at this point, Bender has disappeared. He's now blended in with the penguins. Now, later that night, we have all the protesters returning, and Bender has not returned with them. Apparently, he's fallen asleep. So Leela returns inside their HQ, and she sees like Fry and Zoidberg, and I guess they're playing video games. And
notice how their controllers are wired still at this point. They're not wireless controllers; they're wired controllers.
I guess they can only do so much on Pluto. Maybe they have like a really, 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 really old console.
Well, I'm trying to remember. Do you remember when wireless controllers became the norm?
I would say that was probably like the
2005
consoles. So that was probably like the Xbox.
The Wii
Xbox,
definitely was,
the Wii, and the Xbox 360.
Yeah.
So it was only 2 or 3 years
PlayStation
after this
3.
episode.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3 or whatever, and the Wii. I think that generation, that was when they started having wireless console or wireless controllers for their consoles.
Wireless consoles. Now that's what we need. Yeah. Actually, technically, the Switch is wireless. Sort of.
It is.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it becomes
Can
handheld, right? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to talk handheld console or wireless consoles, I mean, what about the Game Boy too, right? That's a handheld one. That's been around since the 80s, so that's something. But yeah, you're right. They're still using these things. So Leela questions.
Pocket? Yeah.
Leela questions why they're in there, and then sorry, it makes me laugh for this. Zoidberg states that they were sent in for doing a bad job and for eating penguin eggs.
I love the little joke too here. Like Fry was like, "You ate most of them," so like Fry was also eating them.
Yeah.
Like, have you guys ever tried any kind of eggs, like besides chicken eggs, like duck eggs, ostrich eggs, quail eggs?
Yeah.
I think I had a quail egg like 15 years in Japan. I think we had quail.
So Leela informs them after this that Bender is missing, and as Tristan had just mentioned as well, it's very, 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 very cold on this planet. So she's going to go out looking for him, but Fry steps up and he says, "Nope, we have our differences, but I'm going to be the one to find him." And and Zoidberg goes with him out of like pure loyalty. So Fry wears like the hat, he wears the coat, and he takes the ship and he flies off planet somehow. Even though it's been shown that Fry knows how to fly the ship in the past, but for some reason he just doesn't do very well afterwards. So Bender, he's as I said, kind of fallen asleep with the penguins, and they do this kind of I don't know, are they going for like a swim, I guess, because they're just waddling, right? They're just heading over to the cliff area, and they knock him in kind of into the frozen water, and this is the first time we get to see this killer whale. And I mentioned the killer whale because it will come up a little bit later, but it knocks him around and it knocks him out, and we see Bender reboot, which we haven't really seen since like wait, actually, is this the first time? Because we do see him reboot a couple times in the future.
The first episode he reboots kind of when he gets electrocuted. Or is that a
That's
fan
right.
theory?
But I don't think we see it from his
Not
eyes.
from his point of view.
No,
Right.
no.
Yeah. Oh, we do see. This is what I was thinking. Was like, remember when they went to the it was Mother's Day, and they go to the robot museum at Mom's, right? And it's like, look through the eyes of a bending unit. And so Leela and Fry will put them on there, and then it says like, oh no, Leela does, right? Because it says like, okay, look for alcohol. Your first task is look for alcohol, then steal from Chump, or like search for a Chump or something, and then it sees Fry and it says Chump found or something, like this kind of thing. So, and then Bender puts it on. He's like, oh, that's like gives me a headache, right? Because it's like looking at himself. So
Yes.
that's the one time we see that. So this
Yeah.
is kind of the same, except it's rebooting, and it reboots as Penguin. And I think his tasks are frolic and look for fish or something. Very, very
Yes.
simple things,
Acquire
right?
food and frolic. Yeah.
And frolic, right? So he gets up, and he's still like in his tuxedo, and he's still like their height, and they start quacking at each other and talking, and communication is fine. Bender becomes one of the penguins. So he walks off with them, and there's like this fun little montage of Bender just being a penguin. And some things he's pretty good at, other things he's not so good at, because he's obviously not a penguin.
Nope.
I love this concept that presumably he can adapt to any group of beings. If he is to reboot within their presence and to scan them, he can acquire their method of communication. He can become them,
Yeah.
presumably for anything.
Yeah.
Love that.
If he's ever knocked out in like in an alien world or something, he can blend in and work with them, right? Yeah, exactly. It's Bender's gimmicks are actually quite astounding, because we see so many things over the course of the show. You're like, oh wow, he can do this, he can do that, he can do this. Like even when they become superheroes, like we see how much Bender can actually do as like just by himself, because he's a robot, so he can just do whatever he wants. But and his chest compartment
Super
always
cute.
has everything.
Mhm.
So yeah, the Super King, El Zilcho.
Is it too late to change my name?
So yeah, so we have this fun montage of this, and so Fry and Zoidberg are searching for Bender, and they're off planet. I thought this was kind of just, it reminded me a lot of You and Me, Mitchell, in some regard. Like this is when we're on the ship or whatever. It's like we're driving, and then you're like, oh yeah, I don't know where we are. And it's like, well, I thought you knew where you were going, and we're just like arguing back and forth.
I wasn't built for not having map
GPS,
application.
Yes, but I just always enjoy those old car rides when we can like,
Oh,
we don't
yeah,
quite know where we're going. We're just like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
fun,
yeah,
but now
people
we're
these days,
lost.
They'll never know what GPS has done for them.
Exactly.
And now like it's built
Yeah.
into cars, like you don't even have to use your phone.
Yeah. People are just like, it's automatic now. It's like, oh,
Mhm.
I know that I've been to this place 1,000 times, but in any case, Bender's missing. He's frolicking with penguins. Fry and Zoidberg are off planet looking for him, but they're doing it a horrible job.
Being attacked by like space kraken or something.
Oh yeah, right, the squid. So Waterfall Senior informs everyone that the penguins actually seem to be a lot more fertile, like incredibly fertile. The garden variety penguin apparently lays like one egg every year or something. Now they're laying like 6 eggs like every month or every few days, and then even so much so is even the males are laying eggs.
It was every 15 minutes actually. They were
15
laying.
minutes. Sorry, it's even crazier, right? It's just like they're crazy fertile. So
Every time you say something, the crowd would go, they would gasp. And then he said, even the
and the one
males
guy.
are laying eggs. And then one guy fainted. This man is overgasped.
Exactly. So fear of them starving to death, the protesters and obviously the environmentalists there, they decide to do a hunting season for the penguins. And at first, like Leela is absolutely traumatized by this because she absolutely adores the penguin. She loves everything that's cute. But she sees outside the window. I thought I really enjoyed this because of like where I've been, but like when he opens the window, because she's like, we can't hunt the penguins, like this is the wrong thing to do. He's like, really? You think that shooting penguins is worse than letting them starve to death? And then he opens the window, and there's like all these penguins pushing against it.
Pushed right up.
She's like, it's just like Hong Kong. I don't know, that just gets me. So we have the penguins here. They're too many, so she agrees. She agrees
Well,
at first. She's like, this must be a better situation, or a better way to deal with this is to probably kill a lot of them in order to save them from starving to death. Yeah. In any case, Leela agrees that this is probably better until she hears them all, like, they have their guns and they're
Yeah.
like, ha ha,
Oh,
doggy,
doggy,
let's
yeah.
do this. Oh, hot doggy. And what is this, Mitchell? We have yet another Scruffy.
Yeah, well,
Scruffy's here. But we know Scruffy now. But it's the same voice. It's even his white mustache. Like, it's actually
Yeah.
Scruffy. So Scruffy somehow made it into the protesters. Maybe he just wanted to hunt penguins. I don't know. Or maybe he secretly loves penguins too. We don't know much about Scruffy. But his character
the
model
thing
is
is he's been zombified. It's been mentioned multiple times that he's been zombified.
that is later. Oh my God, you ready for this, Mitchell? Maybe this is the thing that kills him and why they had to bring him back as a zombie. So back in the first episode we meet him, he's not actually a zombie yet. Now he is. After this episode. Interesting. So that's an episode way in the future. Don't worry about it. So yeah. She's like, no, I'm not gonna do this, or whatever the case, like I don't want to do this, and then she gets even more disturbed by it. So the protesters and Leela go out and they start hunting them. So Leela aims at penguins in this giant group of penguins, and she's having second thoughts, but she's committed to trying to help, and she takes a shot. She turns away and shoots into the crowd. And
First, she says one of my favorite lines of this thing is like we
murdering
gotta
a
kill
tiny
them.
butler.
Don't leave orphans.
Oh, don't leave orphans. Sure, yeah, because she herself is an orphan, right, to what she believes, right? Yeah. So she takes a shot. Tear comes out her eye, and she runs in and she's crying. She's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And it turns out the one penguin she shot is Bender. Bender lying in the ice. So Bender reboots again because Leela's around, the dominant species, I guess, or the one he knows, and he becomes like, what would you call this, Tristan? Like the human reboot, I guess, a human version of it.
Well, and I was wondering in my head, is this his vanilla standard mode, or is this just
I guess it must be
one of n possible permutations of him, and he just happens to come back to it because Leela's there?
Also, this is the first time that we get confirmation that Leela is human.
Right. Yeah, because he says like a human around or something, right?
Yeah.
You can do this. That's true. Yeah.
Good point.
And
I
actually,
didn't catch that.
Yeah, and if you see like in other episodes as well, a lot of people, like even Morbo in this episode even refers to her as like the funny humanoid, right? He never calls her an alien or anything like that. Mind you, he is an alien himself. Yeah, he just says humanoid. But yeah, you're right. So like it references something. Maybe there's some kind of history to who Leela is, right? Which we don't know yet. So yeah, it turns out she shoots Bender. He reboots as a human in the human mode, and the hunters then show up as they're having this conversation. So Leela tries to stop the hunters from shooting the rest of the penguins. Bender, and this is what Tristan's alluding to earlier, takes the penguins and basically disappears to get a better advantage point to take on the hunters. So Tristan, walk us through this. So the hunters are here. They're like confused because the penguins have disappeared. And then Bender says like the attack. And what's going on here? What does he say? What is he referencing specifically?
Oh, well, the speech is just some quotes from Churchill, like we'll fight them on the hills, we'll fight them on the glaciers. Except Churchill doesn't say on the glaciers, of course. But
he says beaches, doesn't he? He fights them on the.
I think so. I think it's a D-Day speech. It must be a D-Day speech.
Yes. Okay. And then and Bender says something about we'll fight them on the glaciers and we'll fight them on the.
No, he says beaches.
He says beaches and glaciers, right? Yeah. Okay.
He just says beaches. And he does say glaciers, yes.
And glaciers, yeah. He says two things. That's Churchill's thing. He says them on two things, right? Okay. And then the penguins, like they slide in attack, right? Like they do like all these really cool things. So basically, Free Waterfall Senior and the rest of the hunters, including Scruffy, we're gonna throw this in there, are all taken down and murdered by the penguins.
We only really see a waterfall get taken down, though.
That's true. The other ones are running away, but I'm pretty sure all of them got pretty hurt.
It's all off screen for this, though. But then, as Waterfall Senior gets eaten alive here, we see in the background, "I avenge you, son!"
A cameo of Tristan's next episode. Yeah. Yes. I was going to save it for when we actually do that episode. It's kind of in the future. That's actually a Zoidberg one too. Mitchell, do you remember the name of that character by any chance? because he has kind of a longer name. He's also a waterfall.
Yeah.
But I can't remember, and he's a lawyer, but I can't remember his name right now. It's not a big deal, but we can talk about it when the episode comes up. But yes, he is the father of Free Waterfall Senior, therefore the grandfather of
Old Man
Free
Waterfall. That's his name. Is Old Man Waterfall.
Old Man Waterfall, the lawyer. Okay, cool. And he's also like a veteran and everything, right? So okay,
Yeah.
So he has a small little cameo, which is funny. We'll see him like a long time later. So after all this happens, and Bender and Lilo are like, okay, well, I guess that's good and whatever. And Bender says something. I do like this line. He tells Lilo, like, basically he taught them, if it's not black and white, peck, scratch, and bite. Basically, so like to fend off all intruders, you got to be just, hate everything. As he says this, he's like, oh, it's time for me to take off my tuxedo because I no longer am doing community service and I'm no longer a penguin. To which he puts it into his chest, and obviously the penguins realize he's no longer wearing black and white. He's not a penguin anymore. So they attack Leela and Bender. So they chase after them. They get to a glacier area. They go down this hill on Leela as a toboggan. They get to this little area to break off the ice, and we have a funny little thing that the penguins can also swim. So,
oh yeah, it's coming all back to me now.
So the penguins show up onto their little ice sheet because they're now floating away. But who should arrive to save them? Fry. Wiggles. Yeah.
Yeah, Fry.
Wiggles.
Yep. Wiggles. So Wiggles shows up and lands on the ice, and he like kind of, we'll say, like kind of tilts, right? Because the ship's quite heavy, and the penguins kind of slide down, and there's like the killer whale we saw earlier is back up there, and he eats like all the penguins. So as Bender kind of slips or whatever, Fry catches him, and they make up, and they're happy to be together. So Fry accepts him as the captain, and they bring Leela. After this, they leave Pluto, and they have a nice little conversation about like, oh yeah, it's nice to do these kinds of things. It's nice to all be back together, and we're left with a small little we'll call it like an exit an outro of some sort, where the penguins that Bender had raised and lived with find the guns of the people who were like gonna hunt them, and they have the guns there, and it is left ambiguous as to whether or not the penguins will then go to war with each other.
It's a Marvel mid-credit scene.
Yes, and it just cuts to black, but we don't hear anything. So, yeah. And yeah, that's the Birdbot of Ice-Catraz. So, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. I think it's a very solid episode. I think there's a lot of really good things. Tristan, your thoughts on the Birdbot of Ice-Catraz?
Yeah,
Overall,
I really liked it. I didn't remember it very well. I'm sure I had seen it, but it had been lost to memory.
Sure. There's some things you remember like the scenes from these shows, but you don't remember like the main story of it or something, right? Yeah.
I thought
I can appreciate it a lot more too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I found it had really good like ties to other episodes, like the Finglonger, the robots being environmentally unfriendly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really good.
Mitchell and I have mentioned that this, and you could probably agree, Tristan, because I think you have been watching some of these episodes more recently as well. Like you've restarted watching the show since we've been talking. And Mitchell and I have commented like the Fox run of this show, like the original run of the show, has a lot of solid writing, but like it's not as we'll call like sciencey or scientific as like the Comedy Central run was. So they rely a lot more on like these little side jokes or like little side gimmicks that the episodes kind of throw out there. Like there's just like these side lines, like funny little gag scenes that we see, but it has nothing to do with the episode. Whereas in the Comedy Central run, they tend to do a lot more focused strictly on the plot. And they try
Is this the Comedy Central run?
This is the Fox run. This is the original run that we're doing, right? The Comedy Central run is the first time it was brought back after the movies.
Right. Okay.
So it's interesting because there's all these little like story plot points and everything you kind of forget, but the jokes are kind of what I think a lot of people remember from this part of the series. Yeah. So in any case, we'll move on to this too. So you as well, Mitchell, do you find this episode stands up? Do you think it's one of the better ones, or do you think it's also lower?
I think it's got a couple one-liners that I love, like when Leela's trying to kill. She's like, "Okay, kill all families, don't leave orphans." Love that line. And there's also the line from Waterfall. Waterfall's got a few of those and stuff like that. But
I
I
was
think
going to comment on some of these too. Yeah.
one of my favorite ones from him is with like Leela's like, there's got to be another way. We can't shoot them, and he's like, you can't put Arctic animals in cold water to
Antarctic. Yeah, cold showers don't work on Antarctic.
to like lower their libido, because that's what
Yeah, exactly.
that's what us men do, right? When we're all like, hey honey, and they're like, no, and you're like, oh fine, I'll go take a cold shower.
Cool down now, right? Actually, I was gonna bring this up. So like, Free Waterfall. Actually, I'll start mine right now. Like he's my MVP. He's my MVP for this episode. But like every little thing he mentions, like saying rub if you need like a little extra warmth or whatever, rub the permafrost dirt into your crotch. That's nature's like
pocket.
No. It's nature's like I can't remember the word he uses.
Insulation.
Like, insulation or something, right? And then he says something like, you know what? If rubbing dirt into your crotch is wrong, hey, I don't want to be right. And then there's the other one. He's like, put your hands between your butt cheeks, nature's pocket. And then Leela's like kind of like, okay,
I'm gonna go find Bender.
Yeah.
Don't let him pick your pocket.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think Waterfall. Yeah, and then the one you mentioned about the taking cold showers, I think he's hilarious. I mean, I would definitely throw him as my MVP. But you, Tristan, what's your favorite scene, favorite joke, MVP of the episode?
So I hope Bender gets a mention, but I'm actually going to pick Leela, because I think Leela is sort of the point of view character that the writers are like thinking from, in the sense that she, has these ideals that she wants to maintain, and she wants to, protect the penguins. Then when she encounters some of the realities of, maybe we have to hunt the penguins, she finds it really hard. And then she has a little speech saying, I don't know if hunting penguins is the right thing to do. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I do know that it shouldn't be up to a bunch of guys who are just having fun with it,
Right, yeah, it should be like a bunch of fun-toting like gun maniacs or something who enjoy it, right? Well, she does kind of contradict herself a little bit in that regard though too, right? Right afterwards, and she says like anything environmentalism, it's not supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
In which case he's like, what about blowing up dams?
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And exactly, but I think I think that's consistent because I think what's happening is she's figuring it out, right? Like she doesn't know the answer, and then she admits. She's like, maybe hunting the penguins is the right thing to do. Sure. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm figuring it out as I go along.
Nope. Fair enough.
Also, I think just a little scene, but I love it, is when they're talking about how they're going to protest earlier on. She's like, why do we have to resort to nonviolence? Can't we just kick their asses?
Right.
I love that.
Leela always jumps to be the violent one. Everybody else is like, oh, maybe we should do this. And she's like, no, let's just fight. Yeah.
She's like violent with a heart of gold.
Yeah. Well, she has a quick temper, and she wants to be perfect, but she knows she's not. So she tries everything to be perfect, and then she resorts to violence every chance she gets. Right. Mm-hmm. Good. Did you have a favorite joke or anything, or was that? Yeah.
I don't really have a favorite joke. One other observation is I just want to juxtapose Free Waterfall. It's Free Waterfall Senior, right?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Senior. Yeah.
Senior was the first one that died via lure.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
He's so far on one side.
Yeah, they're both.
He doesn't. Yeah, exactly. He's so far on one side of the equation, and Bender's so far on the opposite side of the equation, where Free Waterfall is like, oh, the spores, you don't want to kill them by clapping, but Bender, when he's given his captain's hat or captain role, he's like, I do think of human life as expendable.
Sure.
I love the juxtaposition between those two characters as well.
That's true. Yeah, Bender could not be any farther from an environmentalist than anything, right? Yeah, he's definitely on the opposite side, and he is also the one who's like, who cares? It's not like the Earth is the only planet we have, right? We can destroy the planet all we want. Yep, that's true. And how about you, Mitch? Your episode, your favorite line in the episode, joke, MVP as well?
It would be something from Waterfall. I think the cold showers don't work in Arctic creatures. I find that one probably the funniest because it's like, if I'm having a cold day, cold showers don't really bother me that much if I'm having a cold day or an extra hot day or whatever the word I'm looking for here is. He'd probably be my MVP as well, just because he is just
Oh,
so funny to listen to.
fantastic. All right. Well, that is all for the Birdbot of Ice-Catraz. So thank you again so much, Tristan, for joining us. It was wonderful to have your input and nice to learn a little bit about the Churchill thing and the Birdman of Alcatraz and all that fun stuff. Hope to see you again in the future. All right.
Be happy to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully we'd love to have you if you want to, you can always join us again for the next waterfall episode, which is also a very good one. But yeah, thanks again for coming. So we'll have a good one and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
Yeah, you too.
And thanks again, Mitchell, for joining me as always, as the co-host here.
Start the show.
Yep. You won't see, but you'll hear all of us here on for the next episode. The Luck of the Fryish. So a very classic episode for it. And
It would be Fryrish?
Fryrish, sorry.
Yeah.
Luck of the Fryrish. There you go.
Like Irish. Come on, man.
So yes, we'll see everybody next time for Luck of the Fryrish. Have a good one. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, toodaloo.
Toodaloo.